them big cues on economy, some big push on how the government is looking at expenditure in the coming days. So there was something for everyone, but the happiest people today is the Aam Janta. The happiest people are those who are saying, well, finally something on income tax. Well, one could say one was really hoping it will happen because it comes right before the final general elections take place. It comes at a time when inflation has gone up. It comes at a time when cost of living has gone up. So this is a huge relief for the Aam Aadmi. And as the Prime Minister also said that this is a budget that had something for everyone. And even those in the rural sector, let's not forget that. So while we look at that, we thought, since throughout the day you've been looking at a non-stop coverage of Moneycontrol. We've got you experts, we've got you guests, we decoded things for you. But what about people? Isn't that the whole, the beauty of this digital medium, that we get to interact with them, one-on-one? And that's where we are here, joined by the Youngistan, and we'll be going to them, taking questions from them. And answering all of that is thankfully not me, but Pranjal Kamra. Pranjal, you've had quite a full day in the newsroom, and now it's time to give all that gyan that people love you so much for.
Looking forward to it. And with budget, there's so much happening. No matter how much you read, it's never enough.
It's never enough, really. So just to recap for you, this entire show, Pranjal will be answering your questions live. All you have to do is log on to your social media. The hashtag is very simple. It's Ask Kamra. Go to any of the social media platforms, send in your questions. I'll be reading them all over here, and Pranjal will be answering them for you. It doesn't happen every day, so get on your phones right now and we'll get started straight away. So, but before we begin, in case you missed out on the big highlights of the day, so we have done a capsule for you. Over the next few minutes, you will see how the new tax regime versus the old tax regime is actually panning out. A lot of us have been talking about, and even before the budget came in, we said that there were very few takers of the new tax regime, and that has completely changed with the new announcements that have come in budget 2023. Also, big announcements coming in for women, and the most happy of the lot are the senior citizens. Here's how. Garib, Kisan, middle class, women and older people. There is something in this budget for all of them, and he's rightly really put it, like we've been underlining from morning, that this is a budget which has come, the last full budget which has come before the elections, and there is really something for everybody in this. We've got now some live examples for you. We'll go through people's personal income tax and look at 10 lakh bracket, 15 lakh bracket and the 5 lakh bracket, and break it down to you on what difference and how much money you've actually ended up saving, which is very interesting. So Pranjal, let's get started. We've got budget 2020, the big tax relief over here. Let's first look at the 10 lakh bit, right? Now, in the old regime, it was about a lakh. In the new regime, before the budget, you were paying about 78,000. And after the budget, you're now paying 62,400. Significant relief, but remember, this is not really significant. Why? Because we've not accounted for the deductions just yet, right? So let's go to the next screen where you actually look at deductions. With the deductions, under the old scheme, if you were earning 10 lakh per annum, you were paying 75,400. Now, the big number. Under the new regime, you will end up paying only 62,400. This is the first time the new regime actually trumps the old one.
Absolutely. So, you see these two figures here. This was the reason why people were reluctant to shift to actually the new regime. This was the reason. Now there is incentive enough for people to actually shift to the new regime. So yes, this makes new regime not just de facto government-wise, but de facto good for people as well.
Good for people, because this is a significant cut down, right? Now, that is 10 lakh. Let's look at 15 lakh. Again, without taking any deductions under the old regime, if you were earning about 15 lakh per annum, you were paying a tax of 2,57,400. Under the new regime now, after the budget, there is of course a deduction. It's 156. But again, even after accounting the deductions, if you are earning 15 lakh rupees per annum, you will pay much less under the new regime, which is 1,56,000, much lower, Pranjal, from 2 lakh 10 over
So
here.
PM sir was definitely right when he said that this will benefit everyone, specifically the middle class, the lower income. This budget with the new tax regime is going to benefit maximum amount of people. So yes.
Right. So now let's look at the next one as well. And this is under 5 lakh. These are the people who were very happy till now. We were talking about how they want it to be raised. Of course, before the budget and even now, if you've been earning about 5 lakh rupees or so, you pay 0 income tax. Now, if you're earning 7 lakh as well, the old regime, you would have paid 54,600. Now, 0, no tax for you. That doesn't mean you don't have to file your taxes, by the way. You still have to file your taxes. You get a rebate back.
And there's this big confusion here that if the slab says 6 to 9 lakhs, 10% tax, then how come 7 lakh people who are earning 7 lakh are actually paying 0 tax? It's because it's rebate. So only if you earn below or till 7 lakhs is when you are eligible for the rebate. So if you earn 7 lakhs 1,000, then you don't get any rebate at all, and your taxes are as per the slabs. So you will be charged 5% between 3 to 6 and 10% between 6 to 7, and you are not eligible for rebates because your income exceeds 7 lakhs. So this is 0 only if it's below or till 7 lakhs.
Only if it's below or till 7 lakhs. Okay, let's move on to the next one. The big theme that he's spoken about, 2 other themes emerging. One about women. There is a new scheme that has been launched. We'll decode that, and also on pensioners, which is a huge, huge relief. I'm so happy. Everything we discussed in expectations right in the morning before budget has actually now come out. But let's talk about this Mahila Samman Savings Certificate a bit in detail, because there's a lot of confusion about that. Currently, the certificate that has been launched, it has 7.5% interest, 2 years tenure, 2 lakh. Now, this means that you can invest up to 2 lakh rupees
in this account.
In this account in the course of 2 years.
Correct.
And the interest that you gain out of that is 7.5.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so that means about 4 lakh rupees in 2 years. If
No, this is the total limit.
This is the total limit. Okay.
Across 2 years.
Okay,
Yes.
right. So total limit of 2 lakh rupees across 2 years, the return that you get is now 7.5. Compared to FD, it would be?
Slightly higher. I mean, some banks are offering 7%. The safer banks, slightly smaller banks are also offering 7.5%. But this scheme is safer than smaller banks. But SBI, HDFC offers 7% interest. So yeah, 0.5% of benefit.
0.5%
Correct.
from, say, your FD
From the
figures.
safest of banks.
Yeah, considering how the, how the inflationary environment is, how the returns are going. So this at least locks it at 7.5.
Yes.
Definitely does that,
Yes.
right? Now the second one is on the senior citizen savings scheme as well. Now this is slightly tricky. Now the deposit has been increased from 15 lakhs to 30. But give me details on the tenure and the interest on this one.
So the tenure as such is 5 years. But once the 5 years expire, you can file a form again and increase it to 3 years. That's optional. How do you deposit? You can deposit once every year. The amount is flexible. Minimum is 1,000, and you can use the entire quota in 1 year itself, or you can split it across 5 years. So you can invest now with this change all 30 lakhs at one go, or you can split it the way you want. Minimum is 1,000. The problem here is the interest rates that these senior citizens will get is actually 7.4%.
Okay.
And on FDs, usually banks offer from 0.25% to 5% extra returns to senior citizens. So we mentioned how the safest of banks are offering actually 7% interest. So for women it's great because they don't get extra returns. But for senior citizens, even SBI and HDFC would offer somewhere close to 7.2 or 7.3, 7.4. This is similar to that. So the increase...
So not really a gain, frankly, over there, if you were taking a couple of other schemes also into account.
Absolutely.
That's an interesting bit. Let's go to the same point related to this is that maximum deposit for monthly income account scheme is also enhanced. Tell us, talk us through this, please.
Again, the limit is being enhanced, but the problem here is the interest on this is actually 6.7, whereas most FDs or recurring deposits are also giving anywhere between 6.5 to 7.2. So it's again similar or inferior to some of the safer schemes. The point here is because it's done mostly through post offices, it gives that extra reach and people who are underbanked or non-banked to be actually able to benefit from this.
So this is primarily for rural India then?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right? All right. But let's come to this one. And this is a huge one, right? The limit of 3 lakh for tax exemption on leave encashment on retirement of non-government salaried employees now increased to 25. So far you were getting a rebate,
Exemption.
complete exemption, beg your pardon, of 3 lakh of non-government salaried employees, and now it's gone up to 25. This is going to make
Now
a
this
lot
is
of...
what you call change. This
Yeah.
is big
Yeah.
because you know, if we go by the new tax regime, 15 lakh and above, there's 30% of tax. If I only consider between 15 lakhs to 25 lakhs, those 10 lakh rupees, you're saving 30% on that. So 3 lakh rupees on those incremental 10 lakhs, you're clearly saving. And that's just from 15 to 25. If we do the calculation between 3 to 15, there will be additional savings. So I am expecting anywhere close to 5 lakhs of additional savings in terms of tax outflow.
All right, so the middle class, that's what we started by saying, the middle class ended up gaining a lot. Women have got a slight edge, 0.5 we discussed, compared to the FDs that are there currently. And the senior citizens, though on the schemes it doesn't seem like much, it's almost at par or perhaps in certain cases lower than what they're getting in safe government banks. But the exemption that they've got, that itself is a huge, huge one. And senior citizens are going to get very happy on that front. All right then, so you saw what women got out of this budget, you saw what senior citizens got, you saw what even those, unless you are earning more than 15 and less than 5 CR, except you saw what everybody else also got in this budget. But what about Gen Z? India is now the most populous country in the world. India is also now the youngest democracy in the world. What was it that this budget had to offer them? The biggest vote bank in the country, which will be keeping its eye, and in fact I'm sure kept its eye on this budget very, very closely in the run-up. So let's look at the top 5 things that according to us was a bit of a sort of giveaway for Gen Z. Number 1, lowering of income tax slabs. Now the income tax rebate under the new regime has been increased, as we just spoke about, from 5 to 7. That means your first time employees, your first salary people, you know, Pranjal, they had a bit of a relief, right?
Oh,
So anybody who got into the workforce for the first time is feeling a little relief today.
Definitely, this is something that directly impacts the Gen Z. I think I'll go back to my office and reduce CTCs proportionately because those were revised pre-budget, decided pre-budget. But this is something that, yes, directly impacts the people who have entered their first job. And yes, I think a huge plus, something that everyone wanted, something that was overdue.
Right. Also the number of tax slabs rates which have been reduced to 5 now under the new tax regime, it's simplification as well.
Simplification. I think going forward this should reduce even more, but this is a step in the right direction.
Step in the right direction. So that's number 1 point. Let's go to the second point here, which is about financial literacy of youth, now a priority, and the Prime Minister made a very specific mention of that. He says that the Kaushal Vikas Yojana to skill lakhs of youths within the next 3 years. These are digital skills, an ecosystem he says he will be providing to ensure and align higher education courses with the standards of Industry 4.0. Another point he made was SEBI to develop and regulate education in NISM and award degrees and diplomas and certificates to boost financial literacy. This is directly related to getting jobs.
Absolutely, and I hope just some part of this financial literacy budget goes to you and I think directly, indirectly, but I think the focus was on 2 things. 1, skill enhancement, and second, self-reliance. So self-job creation rather than government subsidizing jobs. So I think this is something... Employability. This is again something we discussed pre-budget, and I think this is really important, be it nursing colleges, be it accelerator funds, be it Skill India, a lot of steps in the right direction, because there's only so much and only so far you can take the youth on your shoulders, specifically when the number of youth is the highest in the world. It has to be skill related, and it has to be how they can stand on their own feet. So easy access to credit, seed funding, again a step in the right direction. So I think all steps in the right direction.
We'll come to seed funding in just a bit, but I want to go to point number 3, and that's really interesting. It talks about AI, artificial intelligence, to get a boost. 3 centers of excellence for AI will be set up, and government will train lakhs of youth in AI, drones, coding over the next 3 years, clearly riding the wave on global demand as well.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, India has been known to be sort of outsourcing the IT of the world. The entire world outsources its IT requirements to India. Now, when that's shifting to AI, suddenly there's this fear that what will be the future of our IT employed youngsters. So, which is why upskilling them, ensuring them that they stay in compliance with what the market demands. So again, I think very, very important. It ensures that India's IT sector actually continues to grow.
It does, but I was hoping when it comes to AI, when it comes to coding, games, etc., there is also a flip side over here, right? We did a full video on Moneycontrol, on Let's Talk Jobs, where we spoke about the different kind of avenues that are opening up in the gaming sector, right? There is so much demand and so few people who actually know. Are we missing a gap over there? Was gaming sector a good opportunity that has been missed?
You know, if I take a broader perspective, I would say that the government has always, all governments historically, has always lagged the cutting edge technology. Government always sort of wakes up to what's happening 5 years, 10 years down the line.
Yeah.
And it's after a huge lag. In this case, at least I'm positive in the sense that the lag is not that much. The opportunity is not gone. So, you know, gaming, if they have woken up to AI this year, to gaming, if they wake up next year, still it would be fine. So the opportunity is not gone forever. I'm glad they are waking up to AI and things that
they
are.
They woke up to AI but completely slept on crypto. How come there was no mention at all? And for me, that was a huge headline. No mention of blockchain. This at a time when I believe last year the biggest headline of the budget was the taxation that came on crypto.
Right.
Last 1 year we've seen such massive adoption of blockchain by government organizations on highways, on certificates, IITs, IIMs, all developing it. This vacuum was very, very, you know, it was difficult to not notice.
You know, specifically in terms of cryptos, I think this was government's moment of saying, we told you so. So, you know, they don't want to ignite that because they're in a very good position right now. Sort of, you know, now they can look back and say, last year by introducing taxes, we protected the retail investors by discouraging further investments. So we were taking a step in the right direction. And, you know, although conceptually blockchain and crypto are two different concepts, and crypto is a very, very small part of blockchain, but for a layman, those two concepts are very, very closely related. So by invoking blockchain, they might fear that the debate around cryptos and the losses that retail investors are suffering could rise up again. They want to avoid that conversation specifically on a budget day, probably.
I actually also think there is a gap between how the government internally looks at crypto and blockchain as well. While we've seen the Prime Minister's office be very proactive, talk about how there will be adoption, we've seen RBI take a very hard stand, and then we've seen Supreme Court give some relief. So internally, I think we are not there just yet. Even the last few sessions, we did not see the bill actually be tabled in Parliament. So there's some time before regularization takes place.
I think 30 years of liberalization, privatization, globalization, but I still think we suffer from this mindset that anything new, first the government will do for 10 years, then we'll see if we can open it for the private players. Probably that mindset still exists.
10 years, you're scaring people by saying that. 10 years, we don't know. We don't know. I saw some happen in the audience over there that don't say that. Okay, let's come to point number 4 then for Gen Z. This is ease of filing ITR, and I think this is a good one. The aim is to reduce ITR processing time from 93 days to just 16 days. Grievance redressal forum to be introduced to ease ITR filing, and a simple common income tax return form for all taxpayers to be made available soon.
I'm sure the chartered accountants are not too happy about the third point though. But yeah, I mean, again, a step in the right direction. Doesn't incentivize directly in terms of your cash tax outflow or inflow, but increases convenience, which is always good.
Which is good. I also think that a lot of the new force that gets into the job market, the first time, once they're all going to be wondering at this time, कि हमें tax तो देना नहीं है पर भरना है. You know, that's the whole mindset that the first time salaried class people actually feel, right? That you have to still file your taxes and wait for a rebate and get into the whole game.
I think, you know, more than the government trying to simplify its platform, a bigger simplification would be if their APIs are improved so that private players can build tax filing platforms in a much better and wider way, and then individuals can benefit from those private platforms and file taxes in a much easier way. So if APIs are simplified, that will in fact make it much more easier rather than these steps.
Right. And then that brings me to the last and final point, and I'm sure Pranjal will have loads to say on that. This is about increasing employability through startups and MSME sector. Now, the government has allotted 283.5 crore for the Startup India Seed Fund scheme. It has extended tax holiday for startups till March 2024. There is lots to say about that one. And then MSMEs get 9,000 crore corpus for revamping credit guarantee scheme to promote financial inclusion and employability growth. 3 points there, but first let's go to the Startup India Seed Fund scheme. What did you make of that? 283.
It's nothing. I mean, 283 crores, it's nothing. It's there for the name. The government ticked a checkbox, but it's absolutely nothing. I think one good startup would take all of that, theoretically. So it's nothing.
It's nothing, especially in the startup, in the funding winter that we're seeing right now.
It's absolutely
okay.
nothing.
Extended tax holiday for startups till March 2024. Now, tax holidays is a hugely debated subject because a lot of startups today say that we are registered, but we don't qualify. There's a certification. It's a complicated process. We did a statistic also earlier in the day where 80,000 plus startups are known in the government register. But some 400 some 400 of them, 0.5% of them actually end up getting any benefit out of this. That's worrying.
Absolutely. And I think more than that, I think the ecosystem will be fine if it's 0.5, but the ecosystem also needs to know what's the eligibility criteria and on what basis it's decided. So if transparency increases, I think automatically more startups will align themselves to what's required and will be eligible. But I think one good point here is the extension of the deadline by an year. Apart from that, earlier you could claim any 3 years for tax exemption. Now that is enhanced, that out of 10 years you could actually claim in 3 years. So your overall lifeline through which you can claim is increased. So that's slightly beneficial. But again, startups that can benefit are right now 400.
Only 400 out of 80,000. So that's another point that one must look at on how to make that process a little easier, right, to make that happen. The last point, of course, has got to do with job losses. It's got to do with employability. I'll just repeat it for the benefit of our viewers. MSMEs to get 9,000 crore corpus for revamped credit guarantee schemes to promote financial inclusion and employability growth. Your take?
This is definitely good. I think this makes it easy for the MSMEs to actually go for a loan because part of it is actually guaranteed by the government and reimbursed by the government to the lender if the MSME defaults, which means it's easier for an MSME to get credit, which directly, indirectly improves employment. So this is a good step.
All right. So this is a good step, but I want to, sort of go in a little bit more detail about employment, about job losses and layoffs, since that's the word that's really scaring a lot of Gen Z right now. And for me, again, there was a big vacuum on that. In the expectations that were sent out, Pranjal, one huge point was that what is the government doing? Any sort of safety net that can be provided for those who've been laid off, especially those who perhaps lost their jobs abroad, now were on working visas, have to come back, have families to feed, have kids to feed, and now you see what's happening. The biggest of the tech firms have laid off people. It's happening here in India and abroad as well. Disappointed or not really?
Not
or
actually.
Weren't really expecting something?
Actually,
something government could have done?
Actually, I am happy with the approach of the government. So when such a situation arises, the government has two options. Either provide some SOPs now and provide short-term relief, and your allocated funds for the sector go down in sort of shock absorbing mechanisms versus build a pipeline or a process through which this problem is solved in the long run. Now, what approach is government taking? One, in the last 9 years of the NDA government, one constant theme has been privatization and disinvestment, which mean the private sector and self-employment has to take the onus to employ the youth, which also means that our youth actually needs to be higher skilled. The education policy needs a reform. Credit needs to be easily available. And if credit support is needed, there are schemes like MSME credit guarantee scheme. So I think there are two focuses. How can the youth employ themselves, and how can self-employed entities, smaller entities, get access to easier credit and then give jobs to the people? And third, how do we modernize education so that our youth can actually get jobs globally? So this is a long-term fix, which I think is better.
Which is better. But how can we talk about job losses and youth and not engage with the youth? So it's time to bring in our audience and engage with them as well. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here on Money Control. Why don't you go ahead with your question? Introduce yourself first. Yeah.
So my name is Dhruv Asher and I'm from Anil Dalmia Institute, currently doing PGDM. So I have two questions. The first one would be, do you really think that the budget is morely focused on agri, tourism and infra, and there were a bit other sectors which should be more focused on? And secondly, being a MBA student, I would say how much would the whole budget impact on my cost of living being a Mumbaiker?
Right, okay.
Second one is tricky.
Considering I am not a Mumbaiker. Okay. So the first question, yes, I mean, the focus was on agri, be it, you know, the accelerator fund that is specifically assigned. Also, the loan limit for agri is enhanced from 18 lakhs to 20 lakhs, so 11% rise there. So that's the focus. But we have to also notice that still 55-60% of employment comes from that sector. So not just this budget, but any budget, I think it's due that agri sector and the number of people it employs, it's the government's duty to actually support that in every budget. One disappointment for me was actually the rise in the budget for the education ministry, which was 8%, which means out of India's total GDP, still only 3.12% actually goes towards education, whereas for more developed countries, it ranges from 6% to 15%. So I think it was time to, you know, increase it even further, maybe make it 4%, 3.5%. That's a real miss in my mind. But focus on infra, I think again, infra has been a constant theme in the 9 years of this government, and I would say it's showing its fruit, because ultimately, if you want to invite, again, this is linked to the government's agenda of bringing in FDI, disinvestments, self-employment, because all of this could only happen if infra keeps on getting better and better. The government could open up units, provides jobs, with or without infra, because ultimately the government is paying salaries out of the taxpayers' money. But if you want to move away from that, you have to give good infra in order to allow FDI to come in. So, and regarding the second part,
before you answer that, can you first tell me what is the current status, right? You are studying right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You have a loan on you, or how does it happen? How much is your current cost of living? Give us an idea about that.
So I live with my family presently. So my cost of living doesn't have much, but around 10 to 12K is usually my cost of living, apart from rent and other things. If I include rent, which I don't pay presently, it would be 25 to 30K.
Yeah. That's a...
So unfortunately, you know, I don't know about your family income and how much your family earns. They would definitely have certain benefits. Their tax outgo should reduce slightly, and if you are from an ultra SNI family, substantially. But directly, someone who's dependent on their family and whose monthly expenditure is 10 to 12 lakh, 1,000 rupees a month, not much for you. Not much. Yeah.
Not much for you over there.
Nothing changes for you.
But
basically.
don't you stay with your family now? You should be chilling. What about your friends over there who are on rent? Can we... Yeah. Please, next question.
Yeah. So I am Siddhesh Dharmadhikari from Anil Dalmia Institute of Management, Mumbai. And my question is how well the government has played, how well the government has played their ace card when it comes to upcoming elections. And how is it going to affect our startup ecosystems?
Dude, that's for you to answer. You guys are voting. This is a highly political question, but you tell me, what did you
When it comes
think?
to voting, I'll certainly think about how employment is going to get affected.
I see. And what was, I mean, let me throw that back at you. What do you think you got out of this budget on employment?
Something, being a first-time taxpayer, I guess 7 lakh is something that I'll be happy about.
Yeah, see, that's a ticking point with everyone, no?
So, I would say on the first part, whether this was a politically motivated budget, I think if it was, they would have taken more short-term measures rather than going the long-term approach that I talked about. They would have provided more direct incentives to all affected classes, which they've not done. So skill enhancement, additional funds for skill enhancement is not something that you do if you're looking for a politically motivated budget. So no, I think they went brave, and I think this has been a constant theme with budgets of this government, that they don't listen. They don't listen to the public. Mostly they haven't, ATC, if we keep talking, nothing has happened over the years. Tax slabs have...
Come on, you can't say that. Look at our wish list in the morning that we had. I mean, if you just go by that, on basic
Right.
income tax, I think
Right.
they've delivered
They've
more than
delivered
people
there.
expected, right?
But having said that, and I'm saying this in a positive way, that most governments actually, the last full budget before the election, they do things which harm the country in the long run. Nothing much of that sort has been done. They've still taken the long-term approach. So I honestly like it. Of course, some measures that the government takes actually pinches the common man, because if you allocate more funds to how MSME can get loan, to the infra sector, to the agri sector, most of us sitting here don't notice that, and the government knows that we won't notice it. So in that terms, I would say it's brave and not very populist.
Okay then. Let's go to that lady over there. Yeah.
So I just want to conclude you. So you just want to say that a good politics is bad economy. Apart from that, we know that what are the effects of budget on unemployment, and us being the MBA aspirants, should we be worried about the same?
Right. Oh, good questions. Good questions. So your first question was,
It's just a conclusion that a good politics is bad economy. Apart from that, I just want to know that what are the effects of unemployment on budget, and us being the MBA aspirants, should we be worried about the same?
Right. So, honestly, since the last 5 years, I am sitting on the other side of the table, wherein I am an employer. And when I meet students and I hear that there are no jobs, and you ask me about my hiring costs and my turnaround time to fill a position and my rising CTCs to attract the right talent, I think India, in my mind, at least in some sectors, at least in IT, finance, some sectors, there's no unemployment, but there's a huge gap between what the industry needs versus what
That's
our
a good
education
point, yeah.
versus what our education system provides. So I'm not saying the fault is of the students, but the education system is structured that way. And thereby, I feel what's been announced in this budget, say you talk about digital libraries, access to quality education to everyone, things like that, focused institutes, AI centers, things like that. I think government has finally recognized this, that our current education system is actually not able to complete or feed the demands of the industry. Again, this is an approach which will not solve the problem in the short run. It will solve it in the long run, but hopefully it will solve it permanently. So this is an approach that I really like.
I think what you're trying to say is that there is no lack of jobs at the moment, but there is a lack of talent.
Absolutely.
There is a lack of finding the right person and a good fit for that job.
Correct.
There are specifically sectors that people are still looking, like I said, especially the new age sectors that people are looking, but people like you are finding it hard to fill in those positions and find the right person for a right fit over there. I think that's a very important point. Let's take some online questions here. This one is slightly tricky. It's on cigarettes.
Okay.
So there was huge duty that has been imposed as well, but this person, Pranjal, I don't know how to ask this question, but he just wants to understand how will this impact his per cigarette cost.
Well, so it's not that straightforward because the duties that are imposed are actually imposed on the already existing GST and other taxes. So it's like a cess on the income tax that you are paying. So 16% duty hike, how much will that increase the final price of the cigarette? I'm not aware of that. We are waiting for the details. And anyways,
you're a good man, you're a healthy man, you're a
Yes.
non-smoker.
Yes.
And this is just to, let me take 2 minutes to remind everybody, cigarette smoking is extremely injurious to health. This is what government is also trying to say, so please hear that very clearly. And Pranjal doesn't smoke, so he doesn't have any answer on that. We'll take the next question on that. If, and this one also has come on our Twitter, it says, if my income is 5 lakh, how much will I pay plus? If my income is 7 lakh, how much will I pay? There is still some confusion over how much do you end up qualifying under the 10 lakh bit or not. So I think if you can just clarify that.
So if someone is at a 7 lakh salary right now under the new tax regime, after the rebate, the actual outgo will be 0. But I think the confusion here is if the slab says 6 to 9 is actually 10%, how can you say that 7 is for someone
Correct.
who's earning
Yeah.
7 lakhs,
Yeah.
it's actually
Yeah.
0. That's because the slabs per se are for someone who's earning above 7 lakhs. So if your CTC is 10 lakhs, then you pay straight away as per the slabs and you don't get any benefit out of the rebate that's available. Anyone who's earning up to 7 lakhs can actually, so the total rebate would be around 25,000 and you are eligible for that rebate. So whatever tax you have to pay according to the slabs, if you are at 7 lakhs or below, whatever that amount is, you don't actually need to pay it because equivalent rebate is available.
Yeah.
But the cruelest HR would be someone paying 7 lakh 1,000 as the package because that completely disqualifies the person from all available rebate and he or she has to straight away pay as per the slabs.
Right. I hope no HR person, no company is watching this program right now and these dangerous ideas are not getting
So
fed
giving
over
an
there.
increment of a few thousand right now is the cruelest punishment.
Yeah, anybody applying to Pranjal's company now, please take note of this. I don't know where this devilish brain is going to go after this. Okay, one more question. This is an interesting one on insurance. We haven't talked about insurance much all day long. This one says, what happened to life insurance company? Is there any regulatory change or new regulation introduced in the budget? All of life insurance companies were down 10%.
So what has happened is, I'm forgetting the exact amount, but what's happening is often these insurance policies are clubbed with cashback, endowment and ULIP, all these kinds of structures. And in that case, the premium goes really high. So these insurance companies are down because their bread and butter is actually selling these fancy policies. And what a new announcement has come is that if your yearly premium, I think the limit is 5 lakhs. If your yearly premium outgo is 5 lakhs or so, then you are not going to get exemptions and tax benefits available that's normally available if you're paying income tax premiums. So insurance premium. So this is a good step because it incentivizes pure term life insurance.
I see.
So in that way, it's a good step.
I see. I have more questions coming in and lots of them actually, but let's just break it up a little bit. Yeah, you had a question. Go ahead.
Actually, I wanted to talk about the rentals. Basically, I'm staying here in Mumbai and with the increasing rentals being one of my major concerns. So, is there any rental saving schemes or related to rent in the budget for the Youngistan this time?
Nothing.
That's a
Nothing.
good one.
Nothing changes for that, unfortunately. So yeah, nothing for you.
I see rental is such a recurring theme. Cost of living for the students is
but
a
you know,
It's
when the
become one of the
answer
major
is
concerns
this,
for me.
but you know, when I say there's nothing, you probably are a student.
Yeah, correct.
Yes, so it's not applicable to you, but someone who's living in a rental home and is actually earning, their tax outgo has reduced slightly. So indirectly there is a benefit, but for students also, considering your family's tax outgo will slightly reduce, so probably that compensates.
That could be savings for us or for the family.
that you take it up with your daddy, man.
That
No,
depends
you
on
are-
how
that
close
depends,
you are to
yeah.
your family.
Probably start for me for the next year. I'll be going for my first job from the next year.
Good
so that
luck,
can be.
Good luck.
Thank
Who
you.
is that? Okay, there's one more question, and this is Ask Kamra. Sir, now no TDS will be deducted if income tax is less than 7 lakh. That's a good question. No TDS?
I am yet to go on this, no clarity
Okay,
on this.
no clarity on this. We must read the details carefully.
Sure.
I'm sure keeps logged on to Moneycontrol, because I'm sure there'll be lots of articles on this coming in as clarity, but too close to time to actually answer this question just yet. All right, I think we have time to take a couple of more last questions. So yeah.
So sir, in budget 2023, we heard that government has increased MIS from 4.5 lakhs to 9 lakhs. So what do you think? With less riskier option, with fairly good return, will it demotivate people from investing in share market?
Not at all, not at all. I think the interest that it's currently offering is close to 7.1%, 7.1%. A lot of the safer banks, I was going through the FD yields of SBI, HDFC, the safest of the safer banks are close to 7%, 6.9, 7, 7.1 in some cases. So it's comparable to that. Also, we have to look at the convenience factor. It's much more convenient to invest through HDFC Bank through an online FD. So just the doubling of actual top ceiling, how much you can invest, taking money out of the stock market, very, very unlikely. One good thing that always there is when these monthly income schemes bring in incremental incentives is that their reach is unmatched. So it directly benefits absolutely the last and the remotest corners of the country. So reach wise, they are unparalleled, thereby any benefits, it reaches to the last man. But I don't think the yields are attractive enough to cause any kind of disruption.
Okay. One more question? Yeah.
So as government focus on a lot more issue in this budget, but as we being a student, what about education loan?
Education loan?
Yeah.
Again, education loan, see, rather than, government trying to subsidize education loan or providing greater access to education loan, the focus is on ensuring greater reach of education through digital mediums. So be it, skill enhancement centers, AI centers, National Digital Library. I think National Digital Library could go really big. It's again something that makes education really, really democratic. But I don't think there's any announcement regarding subsidizing the cost of education around that. Nothing on that.
Nothing on that just yet. Also, another point, Pranjal, I wanted to pick up was on filing of taxes. I think lots of queries are still coming in on how the new tax regime has now become the default tax regime, and people are not getting the difference. Can we shed some light on that?
So I think the exact way how it's become default will actually come when the new tax filing form comes into existence. Probably there you will have to opt out of the new tax regime and then opt for the old tax regime. And it's mentioned by the finance minister to give this clarity to everyone that this cannot happen, that you file taxes as per the old tax regime without explicitly telling it to us, and then if dispute arises, you tell that I have invested so much in ELSS, so much in NPS, so much in other factors, thereby I am paying low taxes. So this is a cautionary statement more so for intentional tax evaders.
All right. There's another question. Let me take that online. It says, hi Pranjal, I'm currently working, but my parents do not own a business right now. They're looking forward to a business. Can I really look into the budget to identify sectors to look for business? Are there any benefits that the budget has made towards businesses, especially for women entrepreneurs? Lots of questions there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I wouldn't get into the budget specifics on this question. I think this is a fundamentally wrong approach, honestly, to start a business, because you start a business in which you think there's passion, there's interest, there's competency, and there's team around that. So I think because budget, every year the budget would come, it would have different focuses, the government has to balance out focus, but you can't keep changing your existing business every year based on what the budget has announced. So I think this is the wrong way to identify which sectors to look at to start a business.
All right. On that note, I think we've got lots of questions answered right there. We've got lots of queries there also answered. Thank you so much, Pranjal. I have to ask you, you spent a full day inside a newsroom for the very first time.
So one takeaway I'm taking is I am never saying anything bad to journalists from now on.
That's lovely. Please explain why.
I mean, it's so much. So we don't make real-time content, and somehow we felt it's the same. It's just that you guys make real-time content, but it makes a world of a difference. You know, ensuring that everything goes right every time, day in, day after, and breaking news can come in any time.
Yeah.
So, you know, I just saw the team, the size of the team, how much organized chaos there was. Huge respect to everyone.
Just keep going on. I can just go on and on about this, and I'm going to request all Pranjal's followers now to ensure that they follow Moneycontrol and also pester him to make a video only on journalism
I
as a
will.
career.
I actually will. I actually
You're
will.
making a commitment
Not
online.
Yeah. I actually will.
Chalo, this is now gone on record and we'll hold him to that. But before we wrap, we've got a bit of a surprise for everybody. Since we were discussing Youngistan, we were talking about Gen Z, and they all do spoofs, right, these days. We thought, why not bring in on Moneycontrol some funny control. Now, introducing to you, we've got Vikram Poddar. He's an ex-investment banker turned corporate comedian. Come on, Vikram, join us. His career changed and is not just into comedy. He writes a financial humor sort of column on Moneycontrol as well. And he clearly no tax on humor, but but you have your own take, the boardroom take on the budget. So take it over.
Thanks. And guys, before we start, can we have a round of applause for Sonal and for Pranjal Kamra? Can we do that? Yes. I mean, it was very great sitting with him in the room. I learned a lot of things, but I really felt a lot of sympathy because I think for Pranjal Kamra, a lot of time must be spent on, you know, fighting with people online, telling them, I am not Kunal Kamra, stop leaving abuses on my timeline, right? Like he's telling people, you know, I teach financial independence. I'm not asking people to declare total independence.
So, you know,
right?
I get comments stating, आप समझाते तो बहुत अच्छा हो. अगर आप कुणाल कामरा के भाई हो, तो I am unfollowing.
Well, guys, it's great to be here. Very nice to be here. I understand somebody had a question about layoffs. There was a lot of concern in that. So I just wanted to tell you guys, I got laid off from a consulting firm in 2009.
Oh.
Yeah. And then 6 years later, I did a stand-up comedy show for the same audience.
Woo!
ताली बजा सकते हैं, कोई problem है? So that's a bit like dancing at your ex-girlfriend's wedding and also getting paid for it. Now in this budget, I'm sure there have been a lot of questions. There's one question everyone's been asking over and over and over. I'm like, what is there in this budget for the middle class? Right? Middle class के लिए इस budget में क्या है? So today I'm going to tell you something. I am also middle class from South Bombay. अरे बोलना पड़ता है यार, India, everybody wants to be middle class, right? Like nobody says, oh, we're not poor, okay, we are lower middle class. No, we're not rich, we are upper middle class. And I'm sure we have like a side upper and a side lower as well, right? So I've been wondering, okay, somebody asked, what is this middle class? I think the middle class is an illusion. I think the middle class is like that person who's a part of your project group who never does any work. You have never seen them. But somehow their name is always there on the project report. देखो जो लोग इस जोक पे नहीं हंस रहे ना, they are the ones who do all the work. Now speaking of work, I understand there was a lot of discussion also about this tax on cigarettes, right?
Yeah.
I can see the sadness in some people. I don't even have to ask who is a smoker. दुख से ही मुझे पता चल रहा है. दुख के अलावा और बात करने की ज़्यादा मतलब. And I understand it's called that the calamity, national calamity cess has increased to 16%. Which means, quite frankly, if you're a smoker, the cess is the calamity. It's so challenging, man. Like, अगर ये पहले बताया होता मुझे, तो instead of investing in shares before the budget, I would have invested in cigarette packets. Yeah, I stepped out. So before the show, I went to the cigarette guy and I asked him, ये budget में भी जो change announce किया ना, ये कब implement होएगा? He said 3-4 दिन में. He said, अच्छा ये 10 रुपए की इंडीमेंट अब 12 रुपए की हो जाएगी. इसलिए मैंने शो के पहले ऑलरेडी 10 सिगरेट मार लिए. In case you see me fainting or falling here, there, don't worry, that's just nicotine poisoning. There is a good chance I might collapse altogether in the middle of this segment. Don't worry, the producer is concerned. I've told the producer if I collapse in the middle of the show, ना, उस टाइम पे Nicotex का ad चला दे.
No smoking ads on Moneycontrol, please.
नहीं, Nicotex is the product to quit smoking. तो brand plug भी हो जाएगा, right? मतलब MBA करने का कुछ तो फायदा होना चाहिए, guys, right? And then we have this whole thing about layoffs, right? It's so challenging, you know. And sometimes people will be thinking, यार मैंने IT की नौकरी की और उसके पहले इंजीनियरिंग की डिग्री की. I don't know आप हंस क्यों रहे हैं? मैं सिर्फ फैक्ट स्टेट कर रहा हूं. अब वहां लेऑफ चल रहे हैं. अब मैं फाइनेंस में MBA कर रहा हूं. अब 2 साल बाद जब प्लेसमेंट्स होगा तो अगर वहां पे भी लेऑफ हो जाएंगे तो क्या करेंगे? मतलब हमारे लिए कुछ है इस बजट में? ओवर एजुकेटेड, ओवर क्वालिफाइड बेरोजगार इंसान के लिए कोई स्कीम है? And then you realize, हाँ HR में नौकरी अभी तक मिल रही है. See, I can crack the HR jokes because I'm not working anymore, as you can imagine, right? It's a pretty challenging time, right? I also read some very interesting provisions. The government said that we want to promote AI now, you know? Like make AI in India, okay? Make AI work for India. I was like, sir, ये India है. We can make AI stop working also. We can make artificial intelligence also sound unintelligent. Like I think 50% of Indian men are using ChatGPT for what purpose? To generate opening lines on dating apps. इसमें से almost कोई मर्द नहीं हंसा guys. Because you know what the other 50% are doing? They are writing those lines, pretending to be ChatGPT. Because India इतनी बेरोजगारी है, AI will not lose any jobs to AI. That's not going to happen, guys. So India, it's not like make AI work for India. Indians will work for AI. That's how it is going to work. Because there was also a scheme that said we want to promote mobile production in India, right? And is there mobile production अगर India में promote कर रहे हो ना, then the phone should be a true Indian mobile phone. It should have a true Indian app that every Indian student and young person needs. It should be called Jhoot GPT. It should have automated responses anytime your parents ask you a question. कहाँ हो? हाँ आज रात को मैं अनन्या के यहाँ पे घर पे रुक रही हूँ. हाँ हम पूरी रात एग्जाम्स की ही पढ़ाई करेंगे, as you can imagine, right? We should have those kind of responses. I think that's the kind of system that we really need, you know. There's also this whole thing about long-term, you know, capital gain tax on equities. अब मैं बोला यार जो उसके लिए पहले क्या प्रॉफिट होना चाहिए? प्रॉफिट ही नहीं है तो क्या फायदा? Because there was this whole provision, you know, that now we have done this extension of carry forward of losses on startups from 7 years to 10 years. Sir, I said that's fantastic. But वो तब फायदा होएगा जब मेरे स्टार्टअप का प्रॉफिट हो. Because today for most young startup entrepreneurs, the goal is not profit, the goal is to figure on Shark Tank. It's like almost Shark Tank has now become the roadie for startup entrepreneurs. ऐसे कोई बोलता नहीं तू प्रॉफिट में जाएगा. Nobody is actually saying that line, you know. It's really very ridiculous, you know, the way this whole thing works. But before I go, there's one thing that I wanted to ask you guys, right? Okay, what do you think about financial independence? What comes to your mind when you hear the terms financial independence? I love the silence.
Really nothing.
Okay guys, see there's two concepts, okay? एक होता है finance, दूसरा होता है independence, okay? Now understand as an Indian youth, थोड़ा बहुत मारपीट के अब finance तो हो जाता है, independence हमें कभी नहीं मिलती parents से, right? You know, right? Like for example, when we have this whole provision, somebody is asking about rental. So somebody will ask in your company, you know, do we have house rent allowance? But see, when you come to Bombay, you know what HRA stands for? It says, yes, you will have a house and you will be allowed to stay in it. As long as you pay rent, which you cannot afford. And the broker will tell you that you will have 3 ways. You will have a view which will be garbage dump view, slum view or no view. That's pretty much is what all that you're going to be left with, right? Because I get very confused, you know, when people ask me questions like this. Like I was reading this, you know, that the finance minister said in this budget this year, increase the capital expenditure outlay to 10 lakh crore. And the whole parliament cheered, everybody cheered. And I don't think it was because of the measure. I think it was just because of the number. वो सुनकर 10 लाख करोड़ मतलब ऐसा फील आता है ना. On fisheries the outlay 6,000 crore. मुझे भी लगा क्या फील आएगी ना मैं भी ऐसा अगर कुछ बोलो. Yes, this year I'm planning to spend on chemical industry 50,000 crore. But real life कैसे होती है? When I'm booking my flight ticket, I'm like यार ये extra leg space के लिए 500 रुपए मैं क्यों खर्चा करूं? थोड़े पैर सिकुड़ के चला जाऊंगा, थोड़ा elbow space के लिए झगड़ा कर लूंगा. उससे लिए कम से कम माँ बाप से तो गालियां नहीं मिलेगी ना कि फालतू के खर्चे. देखो आपके साथ ऐसा ही होता है कि फालतू के खर्चे क्यों करते, तुम्हारे पास पैर तो है कम से कम. This is how Indian parents talk, right? And I think that's how the finance minister also talks. Have you seen how she'll speak to the Indian industry? You know, they'll say things like, you guys are rich, why are you not investing? You guys are not investing, that's why the economy is facing a problem. Right? That's how they talk. And I think that's how Indian mothers talk in general. Like, you're 40 years old, why you're not getting married? All the problems in your life are because you're not getting married. I will petition the finance minister to impose a bachelor surcharge. And यहाँ पे जिसने भी any Indian guy here who's tried to get a house on rent, you know that Indian society already has a bachelor surcharge. In most cases, we are not even allowed inside. See, there are no cheers on this because most of these guys have gone through it. Right? कि मतलब bachelor is like as you know as being some sort of tax deduction. मतलब उतना तो दे दो हमको कम से कम. मायूसी के लिए हमारे लिए उतना तो कर दो, guys. Yeah? Now, before I leave, there's one more question that I wanted to ask you. Like, when you heard the terms budget, what came to your mind? The first time you heard the term budget.
It's as usual, महंगाई.
Mahንगाई, right? Yeah. Inflation.
Yes.
Right? Inflation has risen so much. Like, you know, they have something called inflation-linked bonds. And said if you invest in inflation-linked bonds, then you will be beating inflation. But I'm like, यार, मैकालू टिक्की बर्गर के प्राइस पिछले 3 साल में 3 गुना बढ़ गए. Which means once again, if instead of investing in inflation-linked bonds, I'd invested in McAloo tickets. At least I could have looked at my own balance sheet and said, I'm loving it, right? Yeah, matlab. So guys, that's it from me. I hope you guys enjoyed this segment. Yes, agar pasand aaya ho, you can also follow me on Instagram, okay? Vikram Podar Comedy. Just saying, follow karne mein koi taxes nahi lagte hain, okay? And once again, can we have a round of applause for Moneycontrol? Guys, we put this whole show together. Thank you. And
On that note, Vikram Podar, Pranjal Kamra, thank you so much for joining us. Pranjal is not interested in shaking his hand with me at all. Pranjal is like, I'm done with the newsroom. I want to go back home. I can't take journalists anymore. All right, that's it from us. We're going to toss back to the newsroom where more analysis on the budget continues right here on Moneycontrol. We've been going non-stop from 7:30 in the morning and the schedule will continue. Stay tuned.